And citizen concerns. We've got item 1, Michael Mastal, property owner, 26 Hoyt Drive. Relating to some proposed retaining walls. David, you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Sure, let me just, here we go. So, yeah, I'm not sure why we're getting the feedback. Let me
Move this back.
think if I,
Is your sound on?
yeah, let me double check. No,
You're muted.
I'm muted, so I'm not sure what the problem is.
But is there sound on?
Yes, I think so.
I think it's better now.
Yeah, okay.
Did you see this one? Wait,
So,
Mill Pond.
oh, there he is. I thought I saw Mike here. So this is Mike, lives at 26 Hoyt Drive. You see on the photo here, he wants to repair this existing retaining wall, which you can see is falling apart. And then he wants to put in another retaining wall approximately down in this location. You can't see it too well here, but when I visited with him on site last week, I mean, there is a definite erosion problem here that I think repairing this retaining wall and building a new retaining wall will definitely help. The lower retaining wall it goes a few feet into the 25-foot no disturb setback from the edge of water, which is over here. It's off of the photo. So the reason I asked Mike to come tonight is just I suggested to him that the commission would be agreeable to. I thought might be agreeable to approving this project through an RDA, even though it goes, 2 to 3 feet into the 25-foot no disturb setback. So that's what I would like to ask the commission to consider, whether an RDA could be filed for this.
Okay, well, let's, maybe we can go right down the line and do a quick poll of where the commission members are in this one. Carl, I think that the question before us really is, do we entertain this maybe under an RDA, as suggested by our agent David?
So is this going to be filled in behind the wall up to that same level?
Want to show the section view?
Sure.
Okay.
One more up.
One more. Okay.
Stepped, okay.
Mike, if you could come up to the podium, that way they could pick, the TV audience could pick you up, the audio. Somewhere close to that thing. It's pretty good, but just in that vicinity.
Nice pointer.
That's fine, yeah, great.
Yeah, so you got the existing bottom of slope here in light gray. And then that existing wall in poor condition. And then the 2 blue lines are the 2 new walls I want to put in. And yeah, it'll all be filled in behind the walls.
Okay, so I apologize. I didn't quite understand that you wanted to remove the upper wall and put in an entirely new wall instead of repairing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. Yeah. Instead of saving that one, it's in such bad shape.
Does that change what you're recommending,
No.
David? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm okay with this.
All right, good. And Mark?
Are you driving the sheets down?
Now if you go to the page below, this is just what I'm thinking for a wall. Every 5 feet I put in a post and put in like a piece of weathered steel as the wall face. It's just.
So you're gonna be digging with a machine in there?
I'd probably hopefully bring a mini excavator down to move the dirt from the front of the wall to behind the wall.
Normally, I like seeing, exactly what the setbacks are, something to it.
The plan?
Yeah.
Oh, if you go up to the second page. We got the flags in blue, and then the 25 feet from the flags are in orange, the orange X's. So I think the the bottom wall slightly within the 25-foot zone.
This one right here.
How high is the wall?
The bottom one is 3 feet and the top one's 2 feet.
And so you had wetland flags put in?
Yep.
Remember, this is a discussion whether we want to do an RDA.
Right.
Or
Yeah,
a
we're not
notice of
voting to
intent.
approve anything tonight, we're just like, some feedback. The next step would be have to come back and do a RDA filing, but he's already gotten plans, which is good, but yeah. Mark, any more?
No.
Comments, questions? Yeah, Bill?
I'm fine with doing an RDA.
Okay, hey, Dave?
How close is the edge of water to the first wall that's going to be rebuilt?
Looks like right where the mouse is, looks like it's just a couple feet.
So maybe 2 feet from the edge of Mill Pond?
Well,
No,
these two red
from the
X's are
25
25 feet away from
Yeah,
the pond.
so it'll be like 22 feet or 23 feet.
And you're going to have equipment down there
I was thinking about bringing a mini excavator and
pulling, can you do it, you think you can do it away from the Mill Pond? On the
I
hou-
wouldn't be in the mill pond.
No, but you're working on the house side, reaching in?
I probably could, but I was thinking I would
I
go
think
down
this
to
should
the
be a
bottom.
notice of intent. I think it's too close to Mill Pond. And it's a sensitive area, and we've had a lot of, not this house, but there've been other activity on the houses along Hoyt, and we usually are pretty careful, so. That's me, Chris.
All right, Dave and Peter?
Mike, I understand what you're trying to do, although I'm curious, why 2 walls?
Just trying to keep the cost down. If I have a slope in the middle, it's like a 9-foot difference.
Sure.
So,
Oh, that's 9 feet,
yeah,
yeah.
and then there's not really a big fall hazard if you have
Yeah.
a 3-foot and a 2-foot wall.
Yeah, and this, of course, is, excuse me, close to your house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty
it's
close.
on the map. I don't know, I hate to say this, Mike, but I kind of lean with Dave on an NOI, and the reason is that this whole watershed is on the state map of critical biodiversity lands in Chelmsford, and that's not a topic that any of us had heard a whole lot about, but it's pretty important, and I mean, I can't render an opinion per se, but I would like an opportunity to talk a little bit about what that really means, being in that. You can look it up on the map, I could tell you after the meeting. But it has been designated by the state as being of critical importance for future biodiversity. And it might be good just to think about that, try not to make it hard for you,
Yeah.
but it might be worth talking about that.
Yeah. Would it help if I didn't use any heavy equipment? Or that doesn't really make a difference?
There's no there's no big difference between an RDA and an NOI, other than the level of detail that you are required to show us of what you want to do. That's the only difference.
Well, you had the abutter notifications
Yeah,
as well, too.
but that's just 2, right?
And
There's
you
one on
got,
either side.
You got, you'll have maybe DEP more involved with than NOI,
Well, right,
which can be an advantage.
right.
So we got Peter, John, your thoughts?
I know Mill Pond pretty good. You're thinking just a mini.
Oh, yeah, most, we maybe borrow a Volvo 88 from work, yeah.
Okay, and so you're gonna do this project yourself.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
And you're gonna use core 10 sheets?
Just the face, I'd use an auger, to dry, concrete in some posts, and then secure the steel to the posts. So you wouldn't really be, other than each support, you're not really excavating a ton
Right.
of material and.
How long is this wall gonna be?
It's about 55 feet from here to here.
Okay.
55 feet, yeah.
I don't know, I sort of agree that, I don't know if we have to get into the DEP and everything else.
No, he just files it with DEP and they may have a comment, that's all.
Well, I mean, basically, Mike, procedurally, if you file the request for determination of applicability, you come back in front of us, you present, your plans again, you have the benefit of hearing some of the concerns you've heard now, you present it to us, and then the commission then would take a vote. We need a vote to, to approve the matter with what's called a negative determination. We would rule negatively, basically, and say we don't need the full notice of intent that you've heard described, and then you would be approved. Or the commission, after having the public hearing on the matter, could vote and say, hey, we determine positively that you need to have a notice of intent, and you go through the full notice of intent. So you've got to kind of make a decision. The RDA potentially is maybe quicker and faster and a little less administratively burdensome, but you could come back in front of us, and after a discussion and a public hearing here, you still, if a majority of the commissioners say, hey, thank you very much, but we're going to rule positive determination, then you'd come back another time for the full, notice of intent process, if that makes sense to you.
Okay.
All right, so what I say to you now is you've gotten kind of the feedback from the commission. You can talk to our agent. There's definitely, you've heard at least two members that were clearly thinking, hey, if it came back in front of us, we'd be voting positive determination versus negative. So give you some feedback, something to think about, and then, hopefully we'll see you either way,
Yeah.
after you make a decision.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter?
Throw this out for the commission as much as Mike. To my way of thinking, some native shrubs planted, if David would allow that, within that buffer, would sort of satisfy my limited understanding of what this habitat designation thing means. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but you might, enjoy some birds in your backyard and some turtles underneath the shrubs, so that might be something to think about, which, to my way of thinking, would make the project a little stronger.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
and you can find some cheap sources, you don't have to go to the high-end nursery,
Yeah.
spend a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Maybe at the bottom.
Just a thought.
Bottom wall.
Yeah, yeah.
How long have you lived there?
Still maybe a year and a half.
Have you seen the level of the pond go up and down much?
No, it stays.
Not in drought season and not in rainy season?
Well, I guess in the drought season it was down, but not a ton.
The pond's controlled by the dam.
I know, but the people that run the dam don't run it the way they used to. That's why I asked him the question.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we'll expect to see you back for either an RDA or a full notice of intent
Okay.
process. And some procedural questions that our agent, Mr. Coons, can help answer.
With the notice of intent, we can put the special conditions on, which would be like the bushes and if you wanted something like that.
We could, or
Right.
from time to time, put those on an RDA as well.
If they
If
offer it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And could you come back with a photograph of the otters?
I haven't seen no.
You haven't seen them? Yeah.
I see a ton of beavers, but
A lot of beavers.
yeah, a ton of beavers.
Where are they damming the stream?
They dam it right up where Thanksgiving ground forest.
Before the dam or on the other side of the dam?
Upstream.
Upstream?
Upstream, yeah.
Before Boston Road?
Yeah.
Upstream
yeah.
of there, half a mile. There's
Oh, no, there's way up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is that what you're talking about, way up in Mill Pond? Up at
yeah.
Carlisle?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, they've been there forever.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Mike.
All right,
Coming
thank you.
out on a tough night.
Mike?
Thanks.
All right, next on tonight's agenda is Mr. Robert Johnson, property owner of Zero Shore Drive, to have a discussion with us regarding some buffer zone work. Mr. Johnson present today. Thank you, sir, for coming out. David, you want to give us a little background on kind of this matter?
Sure. So I met with Bob last week. Can't remember what day it was precisely. but met on a site with him. Did a little bit closer a look at what he had done than what this photo shows. So he and Bob, I'm sure will speak to this as well. From what I could tell, he put in a small beach. Well, first of all, and again, he'll go into more detail, but I gather there was a lot of, junk, trash, and debris, I guess a lot of broken glass that he removed. So that was the first thing he did, was he removed that, and then he cleared the vegetation, and then put in a small beach with sand, built the shed, or had the shed installed, and then also the walkway. In terms of what's in the 25-foot no disturb setback, the beach is, and most of the shed is as well. The closest point of approach of the shed is 18 feet to the water.
18 feet.
So, he has hired a wetland scientist.
Good.
Has hired Norse Environmental Services to flag the wetland. She hasn't had a chance to get started on that yet, but she will be doing that. And then I, told Mr. Johnson that there would need to be some kind of plan produced from that. From once the wetlands were delineated, that however administratively the commission wanted to then, move forward with this, that we would need that plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Mr. Johnson, any further background you want to give us right now? And just come right up to the podium.
I'm kind of a little nervous, so I wrote down a little.
That's fine,
Something.
and don't worry about it.
Mr. Chairman and Commission members, again, my name is Bob Johnson from 24 Shore Drive. As a result of my meeting with Mr. Kuntz on the 21st, I'm now aware that the work I performed on the lake lot should have been brought to you folks for approval. Had I known at the time, I would have done that. I just wasn't aware that I had to. I hope to resolve the issue of unauthorized work with you folks today, if possible. I would like to mention to the commission that before doing the work, I removed and disposed of a tremendous amount of debris. The debris included paint cans, a tire, large number of beer cans, probably two 5-gallon bucketfuls of broken glass, and a number of syringes. In short, the lot was a mess. I mention this fact because I feel, and I still feel, that the work I did was an improvement to the area. My wife and I bought the house and the separate waterfront lot in 2020. I put the shed up during the fall of 2021. The wash sand I put down was to cover the remaining broken glass that was too small for me to pick up. This is an effort to make it safer for my grandkids to enjoy the lake. The shed is there to keep my fishing and boating gear near the lake. Our house is approximately 100 yards from the lot. Storage on site is very helpful. In closing, it's important for me to convey to you that we love the lake and would never do anything to harm the health of the lake. Last year, I offered myself and my boat to Wanda Dunn to assist the DEP with a survey of weeds in the lake, and also contributed money to Ms. Dunn for the town filing fee. It turned out the number of participants that would have exceeded the passenger capacity of my boat, so I wasn't in a position to help. Just in closing, we love the area, love the lake, and look forward to enjoying a lot of our retirement years there. And whatever I can do to make it right, I certainly want to.
No, thanks, Mr. Johnson. Yeah, we appreciate you coming in tonight and working first with our agent, then working with the commission to get things resolved, and that's good. At the end of the day, we want to kind of make sure that any work that's done, close to the wetlands area, resources done, always legal, authorized, and sometimes we have these situations we call them after the fact situations, and they happen. We understand. So let's just see if we got some questions from the commissioners.
Let's just see, maybe if David had a suggestion.
What do you think, David? Again, it might be
Since you were
just
there, you've seen
an
it.
RDA type of situation?
Well, I
perhaps?
think administratively, there are several different ways the commission could potentially proceed with this. I think it sort of depends, sort of what conceptually the commission would allow or not allow. Certainly, one way to do it would be to issue an enforcement order, tell him to put everything back the way it was. That could be in the 25-foot no disturb. It could be in the entire 100-foot buffer zone. So that's one way to do it. I think it also maybe depends on, and I'm not sure whether the commission has a policy on allowing new water access, because I think, Bob, I think you did tell me you would like to put in a small dock. So, I mean, that would, of course, involve some kind of work in the 25-foot no disturb setback, but I don't know if the commission has a policy to grant a waiver in that case for new water access. So that's another consideration to take into account. Or another way to do it, would be to require them to file an RDA or a notice of intent if the commission is willing to allow all or a portion of this work as he has done it. Whether it be through a negative determination with conditions or through an order of conditions pursuant to a notice of intent, you could decide, you would be willing to let him do a small beach and a dock, but you'd like the shed moved outside the 25-foot no disturb setback. I think one way to approach it would be, well, suppose he had come in, in advance, before he had done anything, what would the commission allow? So,
I mean, I like the fact that he's hired environmental wetlands expert. I think that's good. We like that. Yeah, those are kind of the options, I guess. I know personally, I like to avoid the enforcement order when we have, a homeowner coming in, cooperating with us, working with us. I mean, there's times when we gotta, we have to use the enforcement powers that we have, but I prefer to do something less formal. This is my personal thoughts. Carl, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd be leaning toward, is the shed just sitting on blocks?
Yes,
So-
It's definitely movable.
So, yeah, that's like, to me, that's the main thing that I'd like to see, is have it come out of the 25-foot buffer zone.
We'll do that.
And that, beyond that, the beach, I think, we can discuss the paperwork and all that stuff, but definitely would be good to get from my point of view, to get the shed out of the 25-foot zone.
Okay.
7, 8 feet, something like that.
Okay, good. Mark?
Yeah, I agree with Carl on moving the shed, moving it back to 25 feet, but the sand, it's still pervious, it didn't cause any harm.
Yeah.
If you put a dock in, I don't think it's a big deal for us to approve a floating dock.
Well, there are state regs for docks, Mark.
And floating docks too?
There are state regs that for piers and docks. I don't know what they are, but they are.
Probably the Chapter 91 license.
But you gotta, I mean, certain ones of a small size are exempt, but you gotta be, if someone wants to put a dock or a pier on Freeman Lake, they ought to double check the state regs, that's all.
Is that the same true in floating docks, if you just,
I believe so.
Is it? Okay.
There may be an exemption for a really small dock. That's something we
The
can,
one we have at the end of Sixth, Fifth, Sixth?
6, 7, I think.
Of the floating one, the one that was pulled up, did not need a state reg. Is that the kind of floating dock you mean?
Yeah,
That really was a raft, but,
they're aluminum and they have
no,
buoyant.
you know the one I'm
underneath.
talking about, the wooden one that they,
I don't remember
the kid,
that one.
okay, anyhow.
That goes out in the lake and they jump off it.
Oh, that was a raft.
Yeah,
Raft, yeah, that
Oh, we're
was,
talking about a dock.
yeah.
yeah, even if it's a removable one.
That's the same
It may
thing to
need a
me.
Chapter 91 license.
All right, any more comments?
No, I think
Yes, I have some, when I get to
Well,
Ask
yeah,
all the
we'll
stupid
get-
questions I
Asked and
can.
answered.
All right, listen, raft the dock, I mean,
Asked and answered.
all right, Bill.
Thanks for coming in. I think he's on the way, by getting the wetlands flagged, he's on the right track, either to the NOI or RDA, and work with them, look into the dock, and let's move the shed out to 25 feet, and I'd like to work with them.
No,
I mean, the sand is on a flat surface. It's not like it's on a slope, it's running in the lake.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
No sand in the water. I didn't put any sand in it.
right,
And there's no erosion, it's not eroding.
no.
It's
I know,
good.
I went down there and looked at it about a month ago. But I'd rather work with you, I'm not here to, that's my opinion.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks. All right, Dave?
Where on Shore Road is this property?
Past the outlet,
Pass it there.
Going which way?
the dead end way. It's near the end.
Okay, what's on either side of the property, sir?
That's the,
It's all,
there's the picture right there.
there's no homes.
Which
on
are
that
we
side.
talking about, the one in the corner?
It's the one in blue, yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So this is Mallory.
That's
the
the
shore.
part, and where, okay, and
Where the arrow is about the.
our
is just about
wonderful
the end.
GIS says that's Mallory, and I know it's not.
That's
Okay.
Mallory
It is.
right there.
All right, where, on that triangular piece of land, where is the shed?
Probably where the 8 is. Yeah,
Okay, and where is your house, sir?
my house is back here, the orange one.
Okay, you own both those properties?
Yes, yeah.
Does,
Sir, which properties do you own?
He's pointing to where the arrow is.
24 Shore.
24, it's the orange highlighted one.
This
Oh,
one,
the or-
this one.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's his house.
Actually, Mr. Johnson, if you could come up.
Oh,
If you come right up here to this is gonna be better if you can point it out right up here.
yeah, I think their maps are messed up, aren't they?
Yeah, this will be here.
our GIS.
That's your house, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the lot's right at,
Lot down.
oh, I see, got it,
He owns lots on either side of Shore Drive.
got it.
Well, yeah, I don't own any of this.
And so how do you get to the lot
We-
that's in question? You walk across Shore?
Yeah, walk down.
Now, the piece of land to just below your triangular piece is owned by the town of Chelmsford.
I'm not
Yes.
sure.
I'm telling you it is.
Yes.
Okay. How close is the shed to our property?
Oh, not, the shed
close
goes
at all.
Not close at all.
Okay, all right. The shed should be 25 feet, but remember, if he builds a dock or a floating raft, he's gonna be within 25 feet. Right? Because he's in the water, so he's within 25 feet. That's why I want him to, if he's gonna go that route, I want him to check the state regs. And if we allow him to build a raft or a pier, we're gonna have to waive the 25-foot no disturbance. So then the question for you guys is if we're gonna willing to waive it for a pier, why not waive it for the shed?
It's an aluminum.
I understand, but I heard, the discussion I heard was, maybe we should honor the 25-foot no disturbance for the shed. I think that's a good idea. Just recognize, if he comes back to us to put a pier in the water, we're gonna have to waive the 25 no disturbance for the pier.
Right.
Just remember that, okay? Who uses that piece of land other than you?
Nobody.
Your neighbors don't?
No.
We could
There's a little piece
Yeah.
down here that's sort of open. I chained a barrel up to a tree. so-
Over the years, we've had problems in other lots where people have built fire pits on town land and had parties on town land.
That might have been the case before I moved in.
No,
'cause it
I'm
was a
not,
mess.
I'm not, I'm not,
It was
I'm
a
not
mess.
suggesting, I'm just asking who uses it. You said you and your family use it, that's all.
Oh, yeah, this.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
All right, thanks, Dave. Peter?
Bob and commission members, I was just thinking, wasn't thinking about the regulations, I was thinking about the point of the Wetland Protection Act, right, which is to keep the buffer zones of lakes and streams good for habitat and water runoff and protect lake water quality and all that good stuff. So I'll throw an idea out, if, back to Bill's point, I mean, it'd be better to work together, right, than not. Maybe there's a way that we could take a look, and David Coons, I'm looking at you because you know a lot more about this than I do, but maybe there's a way we could work together to restore some of that wetland function. I don't know what that means, some native plants or something,
Here,
or don't cut down trees.
Remember that Chelmsford wetland protection laws are more restrictive than the state. The state allows him to build right up to Freeman Lake, right up to it.
Yeah.
We say you can't have a building within 50 feet. That's an interesting question. Does this meet the definition of a building? What's the square footage of the shed?
It's less than 144 feet.
So it doesn't, But remember, we would approve this, or whatever, under our state bylaw, which is more restrictive. So when you're talking about improving the wetlands, by the mere fact that it's 25 feet from the water is an improvement on wetlands than having it right up to the edge of the water, which the state would let them do.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
throwing,
Peter, to your
I was throwing
question,
something else out
So,
there.
yeah, to your point, yeah. I mean, he's hiring a wetlands scientist to help. So
Yeah.
that might leverage with your, I think where you were heading, hey, maybe there's an opportunity for improvement of the wetland values that are there.
Yeah, which, you know, I mean, again, it's, we need the experts' advice, but maybe they're talking about a few shrubs, or don't cut down remaining trees,
The
or,
the best improvement of the
Some simple
wetland
things.
values is what he's already
I did take down
done.
a lot of that viney stuff.
The invasive
The vines, yeah.
That's
Take-
good.
It was choking a full
Taking
tree.
all the trash out, taking the bittersweet or the invasives out, that's improving the wetlands.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's a
I
good
took a
thing.
ton of that
I
out.
don't know that we need to ask him to do any more than that, but.
So Bob, actually, I think that would be a good idea if you could ask the wetland scientists to do an inventory of the vegetation that you didn't disturb. I couldn't really tell, I didn't look at it that closely. It may very well be an invasive vegetation. It would be good, I think, to know that, because that could be a possible improvement, is to get rid of that.
To remove more of it, you mean?
Yeah, if it's invasive, if it's not native invasive, but we would need your expert to tell us that.
Okay.
Peter, you've got the floor stuff.
well, I was just curious, how big a dock were you thinking? Had you gotten that far?
Probably 15 feet, something like that.
Yeah, one of those aluminum ones floating, or,
No,
yeah,
aluminum, on.
On posts?
Yeah, on posts.
and not a boathouse?
Not a boathouse.
Not a marina?
Not a marina.
All right, I'm good, thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
thanks. John?
No, I agree with everybody about moving the shed back and let the wetland scientists, you know,
Good.
they're
If
gonna
I
go
had
to.
known, it would have been 26 feet off the water.
Yeah,
if I had
right.
known.
Nothing,
You know.
nothing, no gasoline in the shed, or there's nothing like that.
No, I have an electric motor. for
Right,
boat.
because you can't put the gas on the lake anyway.
Right.
All right.
Fishing rods.
Just to
oars,
protect the
life
stuff,
jackets.
it's easy than lugging it back and forth to the house, right?
Yeah, 100 yards away, right?
Right.
So I'll just sum up. I think I've heard the majority of the commissioners concerned about kind of where that shed was, want that pulled back, where
Got it.
outside that 25-foot setback. And again, the commissioners are, we want to hear, from your wetland scientists when you come back, what's happening with the site and all that.
So I have to come back, but, well, I'll have to come
Yeah,
back.
you'd have to come back.
Can commissioners give Bob a sense of, similar to the last discussion, whether you would be okay with an RDA or should it be a notice of intent?
Yeah, let's poll the commissioners and see where we're at, I think, I'll just say for myself, I'm okay, based on what I've heard so far, with an RDA filing. Obviously, if something comes up in the RDA hearing process that indicates that we need a positive RDA determination, then we'd step it up to a notice of intent, but that's where I'm at. But let's start, John.
I agree with you.
All right, okay. Peter?
Do we have an obligation to notify abutters? I guess that's what, an NOI, but not an RDA?
Correct.
I don't have an opinion, I'm just asking the question.
That's a quick
And
answer.
plus with an RDA, nothing needs to be recorded in the chain of title of the property. In order conditions gets recorded to registry.
Yeah, but of course it's easier to not have to do that, but,
And, then you don't have a certificate of compliance type of thing as well.
I don't think the magnitude is very big here.
That's where I'm at, based on what I've heard, so far. I mean, we gotta get a wetland scientist involved at your cost and expense. Anyway, Dave, what do you think?
The only work that's gonna be done is to move the shed back.
Can I do that now, or do I have to
So
wait?
so it's outside of the 25-foot. The other is to continue to clean up the site.
You got it, yeah.
That's it.
Well, and the dock.
No, I didn't. I heard him say that's later.
Well, I do have a dock. that
You
I-
might want to do it as part of this and get it
Yeah,
all
that's-
done. in one
Absolutely,
shot.
you should do like everything as part of one.
If that's the
filing.
case, then for an NOI. I was gonna be for an RDA, and figure when he got to the dock, he could come back for an NOI, but, because I wanna make sure, I wanna make sure that this dock meets the state regs. I think it does, but I don't wanna give him I don't wanna give him the go-ahead on an RDA until he verifies that. You might change the dock too. So I think it should be an NOI.
Bill?
Well, I agree with Dave. If you're doing the dock, then you can get, then everything's legal. If you do the dock and you do the NOI, everything is, you've gotten all the answers about the dock, rather than just put it in there. So I think the NOI is not going to be that big of a deal for this. I'll go with the NOI on this particular one because of the dock.
Mark?
I think the engineer will give you the correct answer on the dock, the wetland scientist. Am I assuming that? He would
Yeah.
know?
No.
Well, they're not an engineer, I don't think. Nor is-
They should be knowledgeable.
All you gotta do is Google dock under the state regs and you'll find what it says.
Yeah, but there's so many variations.
There's only one on docks, I think.
Well, in terms of permitting, yes, but I think there's, a fair amount of variation on what a dock could be.
What a dock is, yes.
I think what I hear Mr. Johnson saying is that it's gonna be a removable dock that you just wheel in and wheel out.
Well,
Right.
it's not on wheels, but it's not in the water now, for example.
But that could be something that the commission could consider. that-
Seasonal.
Yeah, seasonal, which would be wheeled in and out.
I'm sure if it's coming out of the water, the state regs are less restrictive than if it's.
So would it be in his
Permanently.
best interest for the NOI, or is an RDA going to, which way is the best?
I can just give you my opinion, if that it's a removable dock that's wheeled in and out, I think that could still be a negative determination,
And that's where I'm at.
my opinion.
If it's something like that, to me, I'd vote negative.
If it's gonna be on posts that are embedded into the lake bed, then that, I think, is getting more toward a notice of intent.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, when somebody files an RDA, they come in, we have a hearing, we get the technical input from his expert, we have a public hearing, and then we decide whether we want to go positive determination and then have the full notice of intent, or negative, but we can go either way. And we're not, if we say to anybody, hey, come back with an RDA, that doesn't mean we're like, it's a rubber stamp approval. It just means we take all the facts in at the hearing, and then we decide whether it goes negative or positive, and positive would mean you gotta get a notice of intent, and then DEP's gotta review the filings, and the butters are notified, and we go through a more formal process.
I think Dave have a good point. Whatever we decide, we gotta be consistent.
Yeah, we need to be,
Because there's gonna be it's gonna come up again
yeah,
other times.
yeah. Anyway, so Bill, get your thoughts, Mark, gotta get your thoughts right?
Yeah.
And then, and Carl?
Yeah, I would, if the dock has a post in the ground in the water, I would want to see an NOI. So it kind of depends on your design, and if you talk to your wetland scientists, they'll probably give you the right guidance one way or another.
I can just tell you, it definitely comes out of the water because the frozen ice will destroy the dock.
Yep,
So
yeah.
it has to come out of the water.
But I would say an NOI if there's something fixed in the water, if it's not fixed in the water. But go with your wetland scientist guidance to decide whether you do the NOI or the RDA. That would be my suggestion.
But I think basically, again, the commission is unanimous in opinion as far as we don't want to pursue we have enforcement orders and other options we could pursue. We don't want to go that way. We want to work with you and your wetland scientists.
Appreciate that.
And, and get the legal permit for you that's best for you and best for, obviously, the town. Make sure everything's legitimate.
Any questions that I have, I would work with David, is that?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
he's our
definitely
agent.
be in touch, Bob.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, great.
So I
Yeah,
think,
and thanks
that-
again for coming in.
Yeah, I think,
Of
exactly. I
course.
think that kind of concludes our meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon, I would expect.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
are we not making this process too bureaucratic? He should submit an RDA or an NOI.
Yeah,
Depending on what he wants to do, he's gonna have to come back
yeah.
with either an RDA or come back with an NOI. Why couldn't he just get our agent's advice, guidance on whether this should be an RDA or an NOI, then come in here and we'll act on it? And if he files an RDA and we don't think that the submission is comprehensive enough, we'd send him back for an NOI. But if we thought his presentation was comprehensive enough, we'd approve the RDA right then and there. Right?
Well, I think you have a point there, but I think what happened was he came in, our agent engaged and saw issues and was kind of looking for some direction from us, whether we wanted to go down that enforcement option.
Our agent's
or-
got more experience than I have.
So I think David, and I know when you talked to me, David, you kind of said, yeah, I'd like to kind of get it in, have a discussion, kind of get some of the issues out on the table, and then we'd be in a better position to be able to give Mr. Johnson some direction, you know?
But we didn't. We didn't tell him to file an RDA or an NOI.
No, we didn't. And we're
He
not.
still has to make up, he has to make
And
up.
that's his decision, exactly.
But
That's
how
his
is he gonna,
decision.
he's gonna make that decision based on further conversation with our agent, because he doesn't know.
Yeah, and he kind of, you did get a sense, I think, of the commission, viewpoint of where we're at.
Well, and I got a sense as well.
As you know, and maybe most importantly, our agent got a sense. of where
Did
we're
we
coming
not
from.
know enough that we couldn't have told him, just file an RDA? That was the sense,
Now
that
you
was
do.
the sense I got of this commission.
After-
I was the only one, I think.
But I think, to be fair, David didn't know if it
No,
was
what
even
we-
possible
What we
that-
heard tonight.
I understand, but if he didn't know beforehand, if it was even possible, we were gonna say, we need to do an enforcement.
I understand, but based on what, but he did come here, based on what he told us he wanted to do, based on what I heard this commission say, other than, maybe there was one other NOI, we could have said, we could have voted right now, file the RDA.
We can still do that.
Yes, we can, and save him some time and effort.
Right.
But it could be either a negative or a positive
Exactly.
determination.
And then, again, it's a public hearing, duly advertised. We'd have to
No,
take
no,
a
no,
form.
no, 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 no.
Well, I guess what you're saying, Dave, is we
He
just
has
go to.
not submitted an RDA
Exactly.
yet. I want to give him, at this point, he doesn't know whether he should or he shouldn't.
Right.
I'm of a mind to tell him tonight, file an RDA, save yourself some effort. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, and I'd agree with you on that.
I don't want to make town stuff too
Let's
bureaucratic.
back it up then and make it easy.
We'll look at the RDA and we'll like it or we won't like it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
If you're using, from what I get the sense of, if you're using the dock that you have already,
Yeah,
and it just floats in the water,
well, it doesn't.
well, it goes, it just sets on legs, but it's not cemented in
It sets
or,
on feet. It sets
no,
on feet.
it just sets on the
It's out of the
bottom.
water now,
Right.
the ice over will destroy the dock.
Right.
So it has to come out of the water.
Then why don't we, if we can all agree, an RDA is the way to go based on what we heard as far as the dock, because I think that was the issue, and we discussed moving the shed 25 feet,
Yep.
do the RDA, and then he
And if
doesn't
we
have
hear
to.
anything different when the RDA comes in.
Right, if he comes back in, and he says, you know what, I'm gonna put a 25-foot long dock that's gonna be cemented in the pond.
Then we'll
in the
deny
lake,
the
then-
RDA and say
Right.
file a notice of
Which you're
intent.
not gonna do, so.
That's what I like. I like doing the RDA, then we can go either, thumbs up, thumbs down, and,
You want a motion, Mr. Chair?
yeah. they make
Okay,
motion.
I move that the commission allow, direct Mr. Johnson, is that your name, sir?
Yes.
To file an RDA on, what, is there a street number for it?
It says on the agenda 0. It's
Yeah.
part of
No,
my
no, yeah, but
property.
every house on Shore
20
Drive is 0.
24 Shore Drive.
24 Shore Drive.
All right, motion by Dave. Do we have a second on that
Second.
motion? Bill in the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yeah, I'm sorry. So that gives you some, I think, better direction, I think.
Thank you.
Took you out of it, Dave, didn't it?
But
Took you out of it.
Makes his life easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a busy guy.
I'll be in touch, Bob.
All right, great.
Yeah, any questions to Mr. Coons, the agent?
Got it, thank you.
We'll see you soon, Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
What's the old phrase? Work expands to meet the time available.
Yeah, I did like that. All right. Moving to regulatory hearings.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. There is one other matter that didn't make it onto the agenda.
Yeah.
Are you still here, Zach?
Yes, sir.
So I'll give the commission just a brief background summary of why you're here. So I got a call from Zach and his wife that they want to remove a dead tree or a dead or nearly dead tree. They live in Hard Pond. There's a declining oak because it's almost dead near the water. I can bring up these are the photos that they would like to remove. It's this one right here. I said that, you know, you need to file an RDA. They're objecting to doing that. They feel that's a little bit, a little bit much to go through just to remove a single tree. So, again,
So if you look, sorry, David, if you, from the other side where we didn't get a picture of, it's almost gutted completely down the middle. I'm not even sure how the branches are even having leaves. I'm sorry if my son's screaming in the background, but the tree is almost gutted right down the middle. It's basically just the outside shell of it, and it poses a pretty serious hazard if it were ever to fall, because the beach that we sit on and hang out at is right here. It's to the left of it. So, and it also is it presents a danger to the little shack that's there on the property as well.
So I'm sure there's a legitimate reason for getting rid of it. Just a question of, you know, what process to go through. So I think the Wintros are asking if they can just be allowed to go ahead and do it without doing the filing. You know, just having the contractor work with me. Again, I said that they were certainly welcome to come and talk to the commission about that.
All right. Well, very good. What's our expedited options? I mean, we
Tell them
did
to go take the tree down.
well, yeah, but under our regulatory authority, I mean,
Well,
it's always an
that
option,
too, I
but
think.
You know, I mean,
what are we, under minor projects or under?
It's a safety hazard.
well, yeah, I mean,
Option
if conceivably this could be considered an imminent threat to human health and safety, you certainly issue an emergency
Yeah,
approval.
yeah.
I think that
That's
would
probably the best
be the
option.
best way to do it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. You know, I think it's, from what I see in that picture, I'm comfortable with that. Anybody disagree in the commission?
He's not gonna stump it, just taking the tree down.
You gonna leave the stump in place?
We'll leave the stump there. I'll do whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to
No,
come
because
down
the stump,
all the way down.
stump
I
will,
just want to get it.
stump will prevent erosion.
Yes.
Is it on flat land or is it sloping fast to the pond?
So the tree is on the flat land, but just off the edge is it slopes off. It's probably like 3 feet.
So
down.
that's why you want to leave the stump in the ground so there's no
Correct.
erosion.
Right.
That's fine. I'm completely fine leaving the stump. I just want to get rid of the tree because it's pretty dead and
How do you
poses a risk.
get a truck in there?
So we already talked to Marquee Tree Service. They're not even gonna get a truck down there. They're gonna cut it. They're gonna tie a rope around the top, drag it towards the water, and then once it's down, they're just gonna drag it up the hill to second lane and throw it in the back of their truck and get it out of there.
Fine.
So there will be no equipment down on the property, down on the plot by the water.
All right, so I guess, Dave, you want to make a motion and then we approve this action under a safety issue?
What's the gentleman's name again?
Mr. Winthrop.
I move that we allow the Winthrops, I guess, to take down that tree that shown to us, it's a safety hazard in its present condition,
But to leave the stump there,
and to leave the stump in place, yeah.
okay? Motion by Dave.
Second.
Seconded by Bill. Any further discussion, questions? Everybody, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. You're all set, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Any questions, just follow up with our agent, please.
And there's some paperwork I'm gonna have to get you, Zach. I'll be in touch about that.
Sounds good. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. David, anything else under open session citizen concerns, or
No,
we're good? Moving on. Regulatory hearings then. Notice of intent, Doherty Building and Design, continued from February 14th, 2023, with respect to 20 Elm Street. We have a representative on this matter.
I
called
guess.
me earlier and said that he couldn't get into the zone.
Yeah, there was a problem with that, although I'm actually not sure we need him. So the project has been redesigned to move the shed further away from the river.
Okay.
You can see, this is it up here. Plus, it's been, a crushed stone-filled trench has been added to the design underneath the drip edge to handle the runoff. It's also, sorry, it's, that, see, this is the 100-foot riparian zone right here, and this is, I think it's been proposed, proposed permanent markers placed 50 feet apart. I think the commission had expressed a preference for like a thick hedgerow of vegetation, which certainly can put in the order of conditions.
I think he added it, he said he added 6 blueberry bushes.
Okay. Well, maybe that's what he means by the permanent
Little
markers.
circles, I think.
Yep, I can see them.
Yeah.
Permanent markers placed 50 feet apart along the inner riparian boundary is the designation, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 circles,
Correct.
which are blueberry bushes, or no, there's some kind of shrub.
Blueberry.
Blueberry?
Yeah.
You suggested blueberry, so we went with blueberry.
Good.
There's plenty on the property.
So David, then based on the revised information plans, you recommending that we're good to approve then?
Yeah, I think this is something that I think the hearing can be closed and the commission approve it. The only special condition that I would put in is that the same thing needs to be done for the screen porch. There needs to be like a crushed stone fill trench put underneath that. See with the pointer here, because that's right along the buffer zone. So that can just be added as a condition.
Okay,
I talked to Brian about that's okay
That's fine.
with him.
all right. Questions, Dave? Question? No?
What happens to this project when you guys build out Barnes Terrace?
When Barnes Terrace gets built, that's when this property will be turned over.
So this is not gonna be done until Barnes Terrace is built out, or
Correct.
whatever?
Correct,
Because otherwise, you'd have to come back to us.
correct. Otherwise, it won't happen.
Oh, okay. 'Cause,
But I think that's scheduled for this
I
spring.
mean, one
isn't it?
filing with us is bad enough, 2 is worse. Okay, thank you.
That's a good. Anybody else? Questions, comments from the commissioners? No. No? All right, good. So it sounds like we're ready then to close the hearing and then take a vote after we close the hearing.
Make a motion to close the hearing?
Carl with a motion to close the hearing and seconded by Mark on the second, the motion. All those in favor of closing the hearing? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous? All right, so the hearing, public hearing is now closed, and now we can take action. We would be voting on, we would need a motion to issue an order of conditions with our standard conditions, but also the special condition that Mr. Kuntz had just identified. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Moved by Dave, seconded by
Second it.
John on the second. Any discussion before we vote? All those in favor, aye. Any opposed, unanimous. All right, very good.
What is the special condition?
You want to state that again?
The six,
That's-
one of them is the 6 blueberry bushes be placed at the 100-foot inner riparian mark
And they're on the plan, which is good.
on the plan.
Although that's not really a thick hedgerow of vegetation, but it marks
It'll
it.
grow eventually.
It's a, yeah.
And then the other one, you see where the pointer is on the screen, put a crushed stone fill trench underneath the drip edge for the screen porch.
So crushed stone on the drip edge under the screen porch?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Because that is at the edge of the buffer zone. It does slope down toward the wetlands there.
Okay. Good. Good. Any other questions?
That's 2. You said it was 6?
6 bushes.
Six.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said it was 6 conditions.
Yeah, each one's a condition.
Yeah, each blueberry bush is special.
You have to
Anyway,
plant 2 different kinds of blueberries.
you do?
Can I assume he's the developer for the
2
rest of
varieties.
Barnes Terrace?
I didn't know that.
One comes
You
in
just
sooner.
can't plant one
Not that I
variety,
know
you gotta
of.
plant 2.
I didn't know that.
He's the
I got
owner of the
like
property.
4 different.
Dave, I have a question.
I didn't know that.
But they said they had other
Is
ones
that
on
lot
site.
Well, they're wild,
subdivided now
probably wild
from the
blueberries.
house?
Chances are they've got that.
Wild.
No, it's only, you mean, has the A&R plan actually been recorded yet?
Shrubs.
Well,
There's
they've got
actually
the-
Quite a few like that.
We voted on this house, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Isn't there another house on the same lot that's not subdivided yet?
No.
true. That's
Oh,
correct.
yeah, it's one lot. This has to be subdivided for this house to be
Right, and
built.
this,
Right.
and this is, you see where the pointer is, that's the proposed property line
So
right there.
I'm just curious, why isn't the lot subdivided prior to coming here? Well, I mean, aren't we approving something that it can't be built till it's subdivided, right?
Correct.
So why wouldn't you come here after it was subdivided?
Because you're gonna have to come back.
Well,
But I mean,
there's-
why did you come in the first
I
place?
thought they said it was all set.
That's what I thought the question was that I asked, but you're right, Billy. I was asking for the build-out of Barnes Terrace, but I also meant the subdivision of this lot.
Yeah, no, there's no statutory requirement for
To
the
subdivide?
subdivision actually having been done at the time you filed.
You can put all the projects in prior to that being subdivided and have a.
Yeah, but he can't build something meeting our conditions without it being subdivided.
Correct, you can't get a building permit until it's been subdivided.
He's, in a sense, he put the cart
Right.
before the horse.
It just seems odd to me why you would do that.
Well, I mean, that's actually pretty typical. I mean, if it were, say, an actual, a multi-lot subdivision.
Right.
Instead of just another house on.
But is
the same
something
lot.
gonna happen, is he gonna go to the planning board? Is he going?
They're gonna have to endorse the A&R plan.
Right.
That's not a big deal. I think the main thing was approval of the septic system, which the health department has done.
Okay, so we're not jumping the gun approving it, it's fine.
No, I mean, he can't do anything. There are a number of things he has to do before he can build out there. This was only one of them.
Right, okay.
Getting this-
All right, I just want to make sure we didn't jump the gun and,
I thought they told us that it had already gone through planning. Last meeting when they were here, they said it's been through the planning board.
Well, I think that he was referring to the Barnes Terrace subdivision, and yes, that has been approved. And I'm actually, I guess this lot must be a part of that, but,
it just seems out of whack a little bit, to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like you would have all that taken care of
Hey, taken
prior
care.
to this coming in, because things could change that we don't know about.
I can double check on that. I think this is an A&R lot. I don't think this is part of the Barnes Terrace subdivision that the planning board approved.
But, I mean, still
Check on
being
that.
as part of a one larger lot,
Yes,
we're fine doing that.
yeah. I mean, there's still, in this case, it's a subdivision with a small s, a lowercase s, but, again, there's no statutory requirement that has to, legally have already been done.
We just look at the work that's gonna be done.
Right.
We're not getting into the zoning or the
Right.
planning.
No, but usually you'd have a plot plan, certified plot plan of that particular lot with the wetlands marked on the plan
And we do,
in the project.
and we do. With the
But it's
wetlands
not
identified.
subdivided yet. I guess that's the thing I'm
It
questioning.
is, that's right.
But wouldn't it,
I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just asking a question. Because it just seems,
it seems like a weird way to go after a
Yeah,
subdivision.
this seems like it's going backwards.
Right, you usually have to put your infrastructure, your curbing, your sidewalk, whatever's required in a road, improve the road to state, town
We're
regulation.
usually last, honestly.
Well, I'm sorry?
We're usually last,
Yeah.
honestly, in the permitting process.
Right.
You do all your planning board stuff, and then, Concom kind of trails along behind till everything's set, and then they wait.
Not the case.
Well, doesn't sound like it's statutorily required.
Okay.
if it's all right, it's all right. I'm just had the question.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
He may have caused himself more work, that's all.
Yeah.
And us, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
Because only because we have to review it again, but he changes it.
All right. Right. Yeah, so, David, if you get any more information on that,
Sure.
talk about that next time, too. Request for determination of applicability, continued from February 14th, 2023, for 250 Apollo Drive. Do we have a representative for this matter?
You are there, Tom, aren't you?
Yes, thank you.
I'm glad you were able to make it in successfully on the Zoom link tonight.
Yes, yeah, I guess there was a mix-up with the link on the agenda.
Yes.
Yes. But thanks to our crack technical team, they were able to get the right Zoom link. out there and get everything going, so. But
Yes.
why don't you give us, Tom, just give us an update on what's happening on this matter, if you could.
Yep, so again, we previously presented to the board at the last Concom meeting. There were some comments from David Coons that we've addressed, so such as providing a stamp plan and showing the erosion control on the plans provided. And then, again, we are also still working with the planning board for the approval of the development as a whole. But any revisions that will be required by planning will take place beyond the 100-foot wetland buffer. So just to reiterate, the proposed work within the wetland buffer consists of the construction of a sediment floor bay in an existing drainage basin. We are not proposing any additional impervious surface within the resource area.
Okay, thanks. David, any comments from your perspective?
So this is an RDA, and the reason I think it can be a negative RDA with conditions is because it doesn't encroach closer than 50 feet to the wetlands. So I think that the primary condition should be that just that, see where I have the pointer here, that area, that's the 50-foot setback. I think that prior to the start of work, that should be staked, just to make sure that there's no encroachment into that.
Okay, thanks, David.
I mean, and otherwise, I think it can be the standard conditions, the installation of erosion control. And one other one is that because this requires compliance with stormwater standards, that the responsible party needs to submit the required, inspection and maintenance reports as provided for in the operation and maintenance plan, which the applicant's representative did provide. So I know that that's something that the commission has really wanted to be done, so that should be a condition as well.
All right, good, thanks. Let's see if the commissioners have questions. John, starting down this end.
Yeah, last meeting, I was trying to put my head around this, so I actually drove over there
Yep.
and looked at this, and I think it's gonna be a good addition.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't really see a lot, over there.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
All right, thanks, John. Peter?
I have a couple of questions about the O&M plan, but I must admit I haven't seen it. So that's probably on me to read through that. So I'll withhold my questions.
Okay.
I'm just curious how detailed it is. Things like inspection procedures, when do you have to clean out the sumps? Is there any prohibition against, using cleaning agents that might end up in the stormwater system? Kind of that usual stuff.
I can bring it up.
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to delay things just because I haven't read it.
Let's take a quick look at it.
We normally rely on the conservation agent to tell us if the O&M plan is complete.
Well, and it has been reviewed. Actually, I think it was the DPW has reviewed it in this case, and
That's what brings up the point. In the past, we had much more control of the O&M plan before there was stormwater management in DPW. Now we have no control to speak of, other than the fact that we require an O&M plan. Because I suspect we're the only authority, are we the only authority that can require an O&M plan? Can anyone else require?
No, the DPW is the planning board can certainly, and the DPW as well.
There's grave inconsistency. I don't want to get into it tonight. We need to talk more about it. I don't think this town controls operation and maintenance plans. There needs to be somebody at the end of the line that says, this is what's required in an O&M plan, and this is what the applicant has done, and this is where the applicant may be deficient. We don't do that right now, and I don't want to hold this guy up for it. So asking specifics, Peter, is it's better that you sit right now, until we address it, it's better you sit down with Dave outside of here and actually go over it. Now, maybe this commission should start getting, I don't even know how big an O and M plan is, to be honest with you.
You got one here now.
Was
How many
2
pages?
2.
So, I mean, there's no reason we couldn't see a copy of the O and M plan at this commission, along with seeing the plans for the building itself.
Well, right, and there's a related question that I need to personally learn, being still a new guy. Maybe Thomas, is it?
Yes.
I'm sorry, hi. You probably know the answer. Do you guys have to go in for a EPA stormwater general permit of any sort? You guys gotten that far?
Yes, that depends on if the total disturbance for the project exceeds 1 acre. I believe in this case it will, I believe after the permitting process through planning board, I think we will apply for it.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the other thing I think this commission I've observed is wrestling with. For applicants that do have to get an EPA stormwater permit, there's conditions and requirements that have been well thought out.
Well, let me ask another question to David. Is there some agency in this town that checks a list that says, this application needs the following filings? This one with EPA, this one with Army Corps of Engineers, this one with ABCD agencies, or it's not needed? Because
No.
we certainly don't know all the filings that are needed. I don't think DPW knows all the filings that are needed.
Yeah.
You rely on the engineer.
We're all relying on the applicant to make sure he's, now, if he hasn't, and somebody after the fact catches him that he hasn't done it, then there's a big hiccup in the process. But there ought to be some agency in this town that says, okay, all of the necessary filings have been made by this applicant, or these aren't necessary.
That would be nice. I agree.
Okay.
But Tom, I think Peter's question actually was, I think, a little bit different than the answer you gave. I think, Tom, you're referring to a SWIP, a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan.
Yes, through the entities.
Peter was asking about a stormwater general permit from the EPA, which is something different.
But who knows the answer to both those questions, David? Who knows the answer as to whether a SWIP is required or what Peter's looking for?
Well, the SWIP is easy, and in fact, in the O and M plan.
Maybe easy for you.
Well, but that's only based on whether there's an acre of disturbance or not. And the question, I myself don't know the answer about the stormwater general permit. When Peter raised the concern, I actually sent an email to a contact that I have at EPA asking that question. Haven't heard from him. So I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, there's nothing that I can find in the Mass DEP stormwater standards that requires a stormwater general permit from the EPA. So I think that's a little bit of information right there. But hopefully we can get some clarification.
All right, so Peter, anything more?
No, that's a pretty big question mark, so I'll leave it at that, thank you.
All right, thanks, Peter. David?
This building addition is going right out almost to the property line, correct?
No, there's a decent distance between the building and the property line.
What I'm getting at, between Pile Drive and your property, there's kind of a swale.
I think this is the property line right here, isn't it, Tom?
Is that swale on your property?
I believe it's somewhere in the town right of way. I think the swale is more or less the edge of the standing water.
Yeah, I call it a swale, but it's kind of a stupid stream that doesn't work.
Yeah, so it's approximately that edge.
So is that on your, so is any of that on your property? Because what I'm getting at is, I'm hoping if it is, this activity is gonna clean that up and make it function. Because it doesn't function. It originally was supposed to carry stormwater off of that site that your predecessor built. And over time, it fell into disuse, not through any aggravated work on the part of anybody, and it just kind of sits there and doesn't do anything. And I was hoping maybe this project was gonna improve that, but you don't think it's close enough to it?
Yeah, the majority of it appears to be within the town right of way of Apollo Drive.
My last comment is, I'm glad to see some manufacturing engineering company is growing in Chelmsford. Good for you guys.
All right, thanks, Dave. Bill?
I'm good.
Good. Mark?
Yeah, the only thing I wish there was something when this maintenance plan is 10 years old, is it still being carried out?
Well, it also depends. I've seen some O&M plans, Mark, where it's only for the first year. So the plans may have a different timeline in it. Some of them are forever, and that gets to your question.
Right. Some are for perpetuity, and who's gonna maintain this 20 years from now?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well,
Those are the kinds of things that are in the O and M plan,
Yeah.
a detailed one.
well, it is supposed to go on forever, yeah. As
But
long-
So the
It's
owner.
kind of like the oversight of, who's going to make sure that these.
Well, remember, we had, one of the first projects we gave Dave was to take an inventory of all of the required O&M plans and see if we had them. Because they're supposed to, once a year, they're supposed to give us a status report.
And I was under the impression stormwater was gonna be doing that.
Yeah, but I've never seen that. I had hoped that they would report to us that the applicant meets or fails to meet their stormwater
Right.
O&M requirements. And we should say to them, the applicant meets or doesn't meet our O&M. So both departments understand what the other department's getting. I don't think that happens, but that's not our applicants.
Well, we're gonna see if we can address that, see if we can be a little bit better.
When are you retiring?
That's my biggest concern.
But,
It's a fair, it's
it's a legitimate concern, and
It's been a concern for a long time.
working.
There's another interesting, I'm sorry, something I learned today from a workshop I went to is there are cases where O and M has not been done for years, and a stormwater retention basin becomes a vernal pool with all the vernal pool critters, and then it becomes a regulated entity so that might actually be an incentive for owners to keep
Yes.
after their system.
They don't want the alternative, right?
I guess my biggest concern is that other project behind this one.
Yeah, it's the same problem. Well, there's two projects.
That's a different topic.
I can't mention it, but you know what I mean.
No, but the issue is, the issue with an O&M plan is, does it pass to subsequent owners?
And it does.
And do they know it when there's a closing?
But they have to be policed.
By us,
Oversight, yeah, we need oversight.
which we didn't
Town
do,
oversight.
and now Dave's started to do
Step
it.
one, he's at least
Cracking the whip.
identified what's going on with the plants.
Okay, that's,
Step one. But anyway,
I'm all done.
you done? Carl, anything more?
No, I don't know if you even can answer this. I'm echoing Dave in a way. I'm surprised somebody's building office space in Chelmsford.
That's
I
good.
think it's
See?
great, but I'm just sort of,
is this an existing tenant, or is this gonna be, leased to somebody else? Do you know? Tom?
I don't know who
So
the
you're just,
additions will be under.
you're just working for the building owner?
Yes, yeah.
I figured that, but I just wow,
Okay.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
So, I'm good.
All right, well, this is a request for determination of applicability. We need, first step, we would need to close the hearing if we have no further questions or comments.
Do we have any public?
I don't see anybody in the public out there in front of us or in the Zoom, but this is your last chance for any comments,
Going once.
questions.
Going twice? Okay.
All right, so now the next step would be to close this public hearing.
I make a motion to close the hearing?
Motion by Carl to close the hearing, seconded by Dave. Any discussion? None? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Very good. Unanimous. Close the hearing. And now we're looking at the request for determination of applicability. Would be having a motion for a negative determination that would approve this project work. We have a motion?
Does that give us the opportunity to address this O&M plan?
Not really. I mean, I think it's a bigger issue,
Yeah.
as Dave McLaughlin was alluding to. And I think we're starting to take some steps towards it, but I think we really, at some future, I mean, you're working it kind of internally within town hall here, and then at some point, I think it might be helpful to have a joint meeting of the concerned parties, representatives of concerned parties, to talk about
Agreed.
the oversight, and who oversees what, and who does what, and all that, because it's been kind of a gap,
Okay,
to answer your question.
fair enough.
But, yeah, so we need a motion, basically, of a negative determination here. Someone want to step forward and make a motion? Mark, on the motion, seconded by?
Second.
Peter on the second?
Just a -3?
-3? -3, determination. Any discussion before we vote? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, all right. Well, thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
John?
You bet. And to see Mr. Coons for the permits. And next on the agenda is notice of intent filing with DIV Riverneck LLC, 191, 195, 199, 201 Riverneck Road. Ty and Bond are the engineering firm representing the applicant. I understand this is a request for continuance.
To March 14th, yes.
March 14th. So if we have a motion to continue this matter to March 14th, that would actually be a few days after the scheduled planning board meeting of March 8th, where they may be taking a vote on the planning board matters.
Make a motion to continue the hearing until March 14th.
Motion by Carl to continue to 14th. John on the second. All those any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, so that's been continued. And that takes us into our discussion items here. We had an order of conditions with respect to 129-0931 or 270 Billrica Road. We had some draft special conditions that were circulated for us to review. That was a matter, we had closed that hearing, and so we still have to take action on that hearing, but the public hearing itself was closed. Do we have any discussion, comments, or questions around these special conditions before we were to proceed to a vote?
So, let me just start off quickly, Peter. So I sent out a draft. Peter revised it or added some more conditions to it for the commission to consider, and so.
Do you want to talk a little bit about some of your?
Is that what, item 5 and on, or item 4 and on?
4 and on.
4 and on.
Yeah, well, let me tell you where these came
Tell us
from.
what you're doing.
Well, let me tell you where these came from, and again, I'm no expert in this, but, given the uncertainty we have about these EPA stormwater permits and O&M plans, and there's also an EPA long-term pollution prevention plan required for some of these facilities. So those are, and there's the underground injection, I guess it's a permit or registration. So there's these other regulatory programs that may have requirements that may or may not apply, and I think that's our question. Do they apply? So I went through something called the EPA General Stormwater Permit, which is created by EPA to apply to a broad range of facilities, including warehouses. And in that general permit, it tells the applicant, what they want to have in a standard stormwater system for inspection and limits on things like pesticides and the stuff that you're reading now. So I pulled these additional conditions from that EPA guidance. I threw out any that I thought might be burdensome or in my personal view didn't really apply. And then there were also a couple of recommendations in our peer review report that David and I had a conversation. Those beta recommendations they're kind of in the general permit conditions that the commission has been using by my read. But I thought maybe it would be a little bit stronger a permit if they were clear and not leaving some uncertainty. So that's where this came from. I guess my personal view, this is kind of a, if the commission doesn't have something like this, maybe this is the first attempt. And I think maybe the commissioners will have to decide, well, if you like the conditions or not, but also if you want to start using them, or at least get feedback from this applicant, which, however that process works. The other thing I'll say is a number of these were mentioned by this commission in previous hearings, things like pavement wash waters, maybe don't dump bad stuff on the pavement and then wash it into the system, basically. And then the last comment I want to make is, I've only seen 2 O&M plans in detail in my tenure so far, and this one was much better in detail than the first one. This one referenced manufacturers' cleaning recommendations for the equipment, and it had all the specs on how to get the biofilters functioning properly, things that I did not see in the other O&M plan of the 2 that I've seen so far. So I think that's important to keep in mind. If you like these, I think they have to go hand in glove with a detailed O&M plan that hits all of the other stuff in a, and I keep referring to EPA. I guess we can debate or figure out whether that's applicable, but the point is, that's been thought through for these types of facilities. And EPA has a general permit for all different kinds of facilities. So if it's a mining operation, it's different than if it's a warehouse. So that was my thought, and I just wanted to propose that to the commission for your consideration.
I kind of like them, Peter, to be honest. I
Well,
appreciate the work.
These items appear to me to be stormwater issues. And it gets to the point I made
Right.
5 minutes ago.
Who's monitoring it?
And who's proposing them? Is it Conservation Commission's responsibility to require these to be in our special, in our approval, in our notice of intent by listing them? Or is there some other series of requirements that the DPW lays on the applicant?
Correct.
I don't know the answer to that. I know DPW doesn't have public hearings, right? So,
But they do issue permits.
So have they done something like this for this application? And are we overkilling it by we're proposing it and they're proposing it?
No, I don't think they've done anything like this. I want to be a little bit careful for not to speak for them, but I think their general condition in this sort of a permit application would be that compliance with the Mass DEP stormwater standards is required.
Well, that's precisely the issue. And again, I'm no expert here, but I don't find a lot of these details, like don't put bad detergents on the pavement, in the DEP stormwater handbook.
And
they might be there, maybe I missed them.
I like the detail.
Where do you find them?
They're in the EPA general stormwater
Well, they're in a
permit.
federal regulation.
Yes, which
Right.
I think, at least the question is applicability. Certainly, the bigger developments in town have to get the EPA stormwater permit. The smaller ones
Peter,
don't.
you don't know this, I'll ask David. Will this application for 270 Billerica Road end up at EPA?
I don't know.
See, that's another thing. We don't know who ends up reviewing. We sign off on a notice of intent. We know a copy, when we approve or issue, rather, a notice of intent, we know a copy goes to DEP,
Right.
and we know they respond to us and the applicant.
Right.
But I don't know where else this thing goes.
I can tell you that, in all my years of working with stormwater, that as far as I know, I can never recollect a time when there was an explicit requirement for a general stormwater permit from the EPA. So, again, there's nothing in the Mass DEP stormwater standards about that. So, I think Peter certainly raised some good questions and some legitimate issues. The way I'm thinking, though, it might make more sense to handle it, and that was sort of my motivation for conditions 2 and 3 that I put in, is that I think it makes more sense to work directly with whatever tenant is going to be in the building, rather than require the applicant to comply with
It gets to
such
Mark's point.
specific.
We don't, that's spot on, because
requirements.
we don't know who the tenant's
That's
gonna
right.
be 6 years from now.
That's right, and if, I mean, we can certainly put these kind of conditions in, but we don't know whether the applicant is even going to convey them to the tenant. By putting a requirement in the order that the tenant needs to get in contact with the commission. That, I think, is, a better approach.
That's all addressed in these EPA general permit conditions. I didn't pull all that out because this would have been 10 pages long. But let me point out that you're right, and I totally agree with what you're saying. And in fact, that's what the DEP stormwater chief told me in an email. She said, well, we don't have any involvement until there's a tenant. But that's not the EPA question, of course. But here's the thing, right? These are multi-use, potentially multi-tenant buildings. Not all of them. I don't know if Apollo Drive is, and maybe that doesn't even matter, because that's just
No,
an
but
office.
certainly Riverneck and Bill Rick.
But Riverneck's a great example. And so the problem is that if you require each individual tenant to come before us, great, but what happens when there's no tenants? And what happens with the common areas that are collecting, worst case scenario, leakage from a truck?
Then it's the owner, Peter.
Well, that's what I'm
Be
saying.
tenants and owner.
Right, it needs to be both, in my opinion, if you want to be truly protective of the wetland.
So what should we do for this application?
I like 5, 6, and 7 that he's identified. When you look at 5, 6, and 7, I mean, this is good stuff, work to minimize use of pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers,
Well, we already have that, don't we?
No.
Yeah, I don't think we do.
Not in order, no, that's his point, is they're not.
No.
And
No,
I,
so
and
we'd be
I,
adding these in, I think these are good things, 5, 6, and 7, I think are good, pavement wash, wash waters, not come in contact with oil and grease deposit, I mean, this is all good stuff, I want to make sure we put these in.
yeah, I agree. Again, I'm just wondering if it makes more sense to have these in a plan that comes from the tenant.
Yes, yeah, I think that's going to be better.
So.
Maybe you could combine these as kind of a sub-paragraph to Dave's 2 and 3, saying, these are the things that should be addressed
Mm-hmm.
when
I like
we
that.
Right.
were requiring
Yep,
amendment.
yep,
I like that,
that's an approach, just like I mentioned in 2, I mentioned no discharges from maintenance of the interior of the loading bays. So you could put something, you could reference something like, the following are also need to be addressed, including but not necessarily limited to, the things Peter mentions, but I still think it would be needing to get them from the tenant or tenants.
But you're going to be in trouble if there's multiple tenants.
Well, but it says any new tenant. I mean,
I
that's what I
understand
say.
that,
any
but
new
what are you going to do when the building's sitting there for 2 years while they're renting one chunk after the other? And then every time a tenant, let's say they ended up with
It
5
should be
tenants.
owner and tenant.
Thank you.
But,
Yes.
but I think, at the lowest level, it needs to come from the tenant. And so there may be several different, in that case, there will be different O&M plans.
And we want them
From each
compliant.
tenant.
Each one of them should be
Yeah,
compliant,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
But if nobody's policing it, you might as well,
Well,
That's
first step
absolutely
is,
correct.
Waste of time.
let's get basically like an SOW that says you're gonna do A, B, C, D.
unless somebody tells them, you have to design so that if this happens, your system can take care of it. So how does that all get put together? If your engineer comes, and he's just going by DEP stormwater standards and not anything with EPA.
Well, okay.
You know what I mean?
Very good point, but in my view, again, I'm no expert, but in
Yeah.
my view, the system is the system. In other words, the stormwater handbook says, here's what you need to put in for your system. If you're one of those higher pollutant loading projects, which, by the way, in my reading the regs, this is one, but we're not treating it that way, but that's a different topic. But the point is, the stormwater handbook has these best practices. So for this kind of facility, it's simple, right? You guys know what this is. It's that hooded catch basin thing. It's the centrifugal thing.
Right.
And then it's the biofilter. All of which are aimed primarily at suspended solids, not oil and grease, although a lot of the oil and grease is stuck onto the solids. So, there's a question there. So that system doesn't really change. But what changes is the O&M plan. So if you have like a parking lot with just regular passenger cars and trucks, like Apollo Drive, to my way of thinking, this is just me talking, if you have just cars and regular passenger trucks, they generally don't leak much. Well, maybe my older one does, but that's different than a warehouse. And, you know, you guys.
Much more risk of
That's all.
pollution.
Yeah, well, like this one. So to my way of thinking, the system is the same. The designer is gonna just follow those best management practices from the DEP handbook. What we're talking about is making sure that system doesn't clog up, basically. That's really all it is. And that they're not putting some horrible chemical to clean the bays and then hosing it into the thing.
Right.
And when the catch basins fill up with oil, there are requirements for cleaning them out. Now, in 270, they've got a nice O&M plan. It's pretty good, I think, from what I know, and they talk about all this cleaning stuff. They talk about a lot of this stuff. The one that was submitted for the other big project in town had loopholes you could drive 10 trucks through. It didn't have any of that stuff, and that, it would be an even harder job
Maybe 80
to
trucks
do
or
this.
more.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's get back. So
So-
what are are you suggesting something different than what's here? Or you still want to go ahead with this?
If I were a one-member commission with the authority, I would, and had to make a decision, I would do this, because this, to me, I cherry-picked out the things from the EPA stormwater plan for warehouses that I thought would be a good middle of the road without going crazy. There's a lot more.
I guess the only thing I would add is, that we should add the, somewhere in here that it's the tenant and the building owner.
I like that.
Yeah, why not?
The rest of it, I don't mind, because what we're gonna do is, we might adopt these, and then the applicant has an opportunity to say, geez, I can't, these are unrealistic
Yeah.
for the following reasons.
Right.
You have to have the, to me, it's nice to have the tenant, but you have to have the owner.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
They're accountable.
And that could certainly be mentioned explicitly, but the order of conditions goes with the property.
Yeah.
So that's
And
implicit.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, just a couple of other comments. Like Peter, on 4 that you added, applicant shall add to the O&M plan a method of blocking flow to the stormwater system in the event of a liquid spill or discharge on pavement areas. That, I think that's going to require an actual change to the physical design.
Well, they say in the O&M plan they're going to do that. So what I intended to be asking here is, how are you going to do that? And secondly, if you have a truck spill and it's raining like crazy and you've blocked off the discharge of the stormwater system, obviously the parking lot's going to overflow somewhere. So that's why I added that second thing, or third, item C. What are you going to do when that happens, was item C. And I kind of dreamed up that 1-inch rainfall, because that's what the engineers before us are using, and I think it's in the stormwater handbook, although you could probably argue that. And then also that second one, I mean, in some of my other environmental work, not stormwater, but other kinds of permits, that item B is critical.
Which one?
Item B, 4B, who at the facility is responsible
Oh, yeah.
for keeping,
I
I mean,
like
who's gonna
that.
do that?
I like that.
Especially when you have tenants.
Hopefully, it's not the last guy in the door.
It's probably whoever doesn't or does remember, but what are you gonna do? They're probably just gonna throw some absorbent, I don't know what they're gonna do, but we
Is there
need to
someone
know.
we could show this to and see what there is, other than the applicant, and see what their response might be?
Yeah, our peer reviewer.
Well, Katie Enright had asked for the draft to be submitted. I did submit what I drafted.
Yeah, but yours is only, what, the top 3, right?
Right, so hadn't submitted what Peter had added to it. It turned out she was in the Bahamas this week
Oh,
anyway.
poor kid.
So, but,
Good for her.
so, but see, the statutory deadline for issuing this order is a week from today. So I don't know really how much time there is for any kind of a back and forth with, the applicant or the applicant's representative.
Do you think we would cause any undue concern or upsetness, if that's a word, if we included these 10,
I
13?
I don't know. I mean, I think that if,
I want to meet your deadline, that's what I mean.
right, yeah, so, I think if push came to shove, if anything is required in this order that's not, say, in the stormwater standards, then they could appeal it on that basis.
I mean, there's nothing in here
Rather-
that Peter's added that I think is something that is untoward.
No, I
Facility like this.
agree.
It may be more
reasonable.
detail than we need, but it's not, I don't think we're asking for anything that's outlandish.
On the second item, which says no
Which one?
discharges resulting from maintenance of the interior.
Where are you, Mark? Which number?
Second item,
Right.
Number 2?
That,
two?
that's one of mine.
That's one of Dave's.
yeah, can we have the authority to require a tight tank from anything that goes outside that's not within conservation?
You mean a tight tank outside or inside the building?
Outside to collect whatever is inside that spills or washes, and, like, you're supposed to have grates in front of the door, so if anything goes, it gets washed down into there.
I would say we can, Mark, if it's to prevent pollutants going into the wetlands behind that site.
Yeah, I'm not trying to find problems, I just didn't know if we.
No, I would think we would have.
Yeah, I think,
We're protecting the wetlands by doing that.
yeah, I mean, I think the better approach is just to prohibit it. Now, accidents can happen. But I think there also may be a way of handling this internally, is that all that sort of discharge, I think, may have to go to something, probably has to go to something internal.
Would all these requirements, would they still be applicable in a redevelopment?
Well, that's another good question, because under redevelopment, the stormwater standard says only to the maximum extent practicable. And this is, of course,
This is, I know it's called redevelopment, it's hardly redevelopment, it's a new use. That was a pretty well-developed facility. How old is it? No more than 10 years, right?
The building?
Yeah, how old is that
Older than
building?
that.
If it was 30 years old.
20 years?
30 years old?
30 years. Then maybe it is redevelopment.
I think that's an important question, because I've been digging into the definition of redevelopment, especially on some of these other things before the commission, and it's a big gray area. I would really recommend we get some advice on a lot of these
Is there a
things.
definition anywhere?
Well, there is.
Well, he couldn't find it.
Well, on redevelopment, there is, but you can, like, it's like a legal thing. You can argue, you know what I mean?
We use the term all the time.
We do, we do.
But there's different standards, is the point. Slightly different.
We need to move this,
Yeah.
we need to move this on for
Yeah.
this application.
We should make a decision tonight, honestly.
I would,
Katie hasn't seen this?
she's seen 1 through 4.
Okay.
So that concerns me a bit, that she hasn't seen, like, these additional ones,
Right.
to be honest. I don't, a kind of due process, I don't like,
I mean, she's seen 1 through 3, I'm sorry.
she's seen 1 through 3, okay? But there's there's value in a number of these items here.
So what's the scenario if we vote on this, all 13 or whatever, and she has a problem? I mean, we can
She
have
can
a
debate,
discussion
she can discuss it with us.
and we can
But
modify it, right?
but we've got to meet, she's got to meet the deadline too, right?
Well, unless we get a waiver of the 21-day deadline
By her,
from the applicant.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would personally kind of hate to this would mess up her vacation,
No,
because she's committed to the
she won't
applicant.
see it until she comes back.
Right.
Are you gonna email it to her? She'll see it.
We got me.
Honestly,
She'll see it.
honestly, I personally would just, and I like what you did, but I would vote on the 3 that we've already shared and leave these for like our next project that we might have.
The only thing I would do,
Relationship
Chris, is I would change 2 to say any new tenant and/or owner.
Yeah, sure.
Wherever the word tenant is.
Yeah, you gotta put owner
add
in there.
and/or owner.
And/or owner, yeah. I think that's fair, David.
Yeah, I think it'd be unfair to
I
her.
don't think she would have any issue with that.
No.
I think it'd be unfair to her to
But
have
I
the other
think-
ones without her
Yeah.
having
Okay.
the
It's just not due
ability
process.
to
So how, is that okay with you,
give us
Peter?
feedback.
We'll
Peter,
do
is that all right? I mean, I
Well,
know we're
yeah.
Follow
good
up, because
stuff.
I would,
Yeah, because,
let's take a vote on this to approve 1 through 3 with the addition of the and/or owner after the word tenant.
Yeah, yeah. Peter, were you gonna say something?
just 2 things, yeah. First of all, I realize, new guy thing, I'm trying to catch a bus that's been going on now for a year or 2, so your
So,
proposal
wait.
makes sense to me, but let me just add, Dave, excuse me. There is, Dave, help me out here, because I think you've got this covered, but we would like them to submit any other permit applications that they have to go for in the event there is an EPA stormwater general permit. I think you mentioned the underground injection.
Yeah, that's in there.
Most of these facilities, you have to submit to EPA something called a long-term pollution prevention plan, which is where you make statements like, I'm not going to use poisons in my pavement and flush them into the system. Things that are very important, I think, to our mission.
Well, that's required under the Mass DEP stormwater standard.
Yeah, so
Now,
let's just be sure that we're asking, and I would advocate that we put a condition in that we have an opportunity to comment on those plans. I don't know how you word that, you need some help there, but rather than just saying submit them, what if we don't like them?
Well, but I think we can still do that based on this language, because if we're working with specific tenants, we can raise that issue, and we can say, well, then the commission wants to formally review any sort of plan you submit
That makes sense.
Pursuant to that requirement. So I think everything you are proposing to do, I think we can still do with 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, let's,
So Dave, I think I heard a motion from you. Why don't you repeat that?
I move that we adopt the special orders for 120, for 270 Billerica Road, submitted to us by the conservation agent, items 1, 2, and 3, with one change, that we add the phrase and/or owner, or after wherever the word tenant occurs.
Okay, thanks, Dave. All right, do we have a second on Dave's motion?
Second.
All right, second by Bill. Any further discussion before we vote? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous, all right, so,
Now, quickly then, because I know it's getting late. This discussion tonight indicates to me that we need to spend a little bit of time. It's probably Peter and somebody else, or whoever else wants to do it. You know how we have a list of what's required from an applicant when they submit a notice of intent? We need the following things. We could do the same thing. We need the following things to be addressed in an operations and maintenance plan. And just tell them what we're looking for.
Depends on the project, too.
Well, maybe we can categorize types of projects and say, if it's this kind of project, this is what we need. If it's that kind of project, I don't know.
Or you have the whole list and you check
Yes,
off which
yeah,
ones
right.
for your project.
And then we can give that to an applicant as well.
Well, there is already the stormwater checklist under the WPA, so I think what you're saying, Dave, is
Start-
that what additional
Yeah.
requirements
Right.
will be needed.
Over and above, yeah.
Yeah, over and above.
And one thing that to my way of thinking, one thing that goes hand in glove with that is, Dave, your earlier question. Who is the overall environmental permit manager for the town of Chelmsford that takes a look at all these different pieces?
The answer is no one.
Right, but that's something I think we could probably work on, and maybe we need, like you said, Dave, a couple meetings with DPW and planning board.
Well, be Evan, it wouldn't be planning board.
Well, it's part of it. But yeah, so I would suggest we think about those two things, because they kind of go together. I mean, after all, if they have to get an EPA general stormwater permit,
Or why don't you do some homework on what we've got in our files about O&M plans? Just see what we've got. David completed a review of all of the outstanding plans, right? You did that last,
Well, the interns at DPW did.
yeah, in
yes.
terms of what we were, right.
I mean, there's still a lot of follow-up that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Mark, you coming back?
I'm sorry, is
Drove him out.
it something I said?
Yeah, the answer was no, he's not coming back.
Okay, that's next.
No.
All right, moving
Poor
right,
baby.
moving
Tough
right
crowd.
along,
Poor
moving
baby.
right along. The request for a certificate of compliance, 129-09.
That's put off till next time.
So we'll have to continue that. Do we need a motion? I don't think we need a motion.
No, we don't need a motion.
Next time. Update on the Conservation Commission Spring Town Meeting CPA warrant articles.
So, the previous meeting, 2 meetings ago, I think it was January 24th, we voted on the Wilson Lane acquisition and a funding transfer from the CPA account. And then on February 15th, actually, that was on the 14th, on the 15th, I did make the recommendation to the CPC for the Wilson Lane acquisition, and that was approved by the CPC, so that is now going to be in the town warrant as Article 23. So happy about that. And then David and I, in the meantime, met with Darlene Lucier from Finance Accounting here, and we decided to pull back on the request for transfer of funding because we were made aware from Darlene that we have other ways of getting funding for the projects that we want to get done that are, significant projects through some of the CPC funding. We may have to get CPC approval, but that's not that big a deal. And we think at least for the next year, we can make this work without doing what we had voted on back in January. So I wanted to just close the loop with the board, the commission, to make sure you're okay with David and I's decision to pull back on that.
Well, and she had some concerns about doing a transfer
Right,
from
yeah.
the CPA accounts to an arbitrary other account. So I think
Yeah.
that needs to be looked into.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. I hadn't recognized that when the state looks at the CPC, the CPA funding, they like to look at it in a holistic way. And if some of that money is now sitting out in the conservation, some random conservation fund, that creates issues for them. And she said, you don't really want to do that. So we said, okay. So I just wanted to close the loop. So
We're not going to be at springtime meeting.
so the second one won't be, the first one will be.
The first one will be.
Yeah, but the second one won't. In the meantime, there's $50,000 that gets voted into an account that we have access to, so we will be able to use that money for things like, we need to have another survey done on a site, or we,
Right, those are administrative expenses, which Darlene says we don't have to go back to the CPC for approval for.
Yep. So
So that'll be a huge one.
it was quite productive.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to close the loop with you guys and make sure nobody's upset that the vote we took isn't going to end up
No, but
going.
Carl, it'd be nice to have a quarterly or semi-annual report showing all of our accounts that we use to draw on, what the sources into those accounts have been for the year, and what the sources,
I
what
get
the
that.
uses out.
I
Yeah,
get
but we
that.
don't see it.
We
And
can,
if you can understand those reports that come out of
I'm
the
getting
accounting
there.
department.
I'm getting there.
More power to you.
We'll work on
We
that.
can put that on the agenda again. We can put that on the
Okay.
agenda.
In fact, I just got another report today.
We'll put that on next meeting's agenda.
Okay, sure.
We've got, some of us are finance oriented and we want to see where the money is.
The reports do take a little getting used to, though, no doubt about that.
David's being
Let's
polite.
talk about that, because I have some ideas on that.
Imagine. All right. So Carl, continuing on, land management update.
Yeah, so on the CR, I hate to say we're getting close, because every time I say we're getting close, I think we go backwards, and we did take about 2 steps backwards in the last month, and then I think we took 3 steps forward. So we did meet with Andy Reed from the Chelmsford Water District. He's the superintendent, and we're all in agreement with the Land Trust and with the Water District on the wording in the CR on how we accommodate preserving that site for some possible future use as a water source for the
Possible
town.
undefined.
Yep, but we're leaving it fairly loose in order to not nail it down here in the CR. If the day comes that it has to be more specific, we can deal with it then, but everybody's in agreement. We're taking the approach that we'll submit that to the state in that way. It may come back and we need more specifics, but we'll let the state tell us that. So we're good with that.
Carl,
Yep.
I'm sorry. I don't want to go on a big tangent here, but what kind of, were they just talking about a couple of wells, or were they talking about a water treatment plant?
Just a
No, it's
well. Just a well.
Undefined.
I know.
And we want to keep it undefined.
Well, but they had said all along it's just a well.
Just one well.
Just a well.
And,
with a
and
pump.
They haven't done any
appurtenance is
engineering.
necessary for that.
Okay.
But definitely not a treatment
So
plant.
they're not thinking of moving the Riverneck Road plant at some
Nope.
future date
Nope,
onto
no,
that property?
No.
Okay.
And, they sort of said they don't even think they're gonna ever use it, but I said it's a bedrock site.
Yeah.
But
It's
Whatever.
decades away anyway, if it ever is
Well,
used.
it might be important down the road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why
So-
we
so
need to have that placeholder in there.
We want to keep the placeholder. I want Chelmsford Water District to have water, so I want that, so. We are, I want to share with the board that on Friday, I'm going to meet with Laura Matei from the Sudbury Valley Trustees on the Warren Pole site to show the site to her. She has offered to help us if we're trying to put a long-term management plan together for the site. They have a lot of experience in that space, and since we're part of their, I don't know if you call it district or domain or whatever, offering some opportunity to help there. So we'll see what happens.
Great, they're a great organization,
Yep.
and you know what, the more we can collaborate and partner up with those guys.
They have a lot of expertise there, so, so that's, right now it's Friday at 10 o'clock. We'll see how the weather holds up, but that's the plan. The other couple of things is the Wright Reservation walk that we had a couple of weeks ago. That was a good walk. Thanks all for joining us on that day. We had, the next day, we found, you guys, I think, saw the email about the hazards on the site. The next day, we had 6 or 7 of us out there cleaning up, and we got rid of all but one of the leaners and hangers that were on the site. That I had identified. I didn't confirm these with Jim, but I went back and looked at the site again, and I found about 7 or 8 that, to me, were, you could consider to be some kind of, I hate to say the word widowmaker. It gets scary when you
Yeah,
say
don't
that,
say
but yeah, leaner. So we took care of those. In the meantime, the one that we didn't take care of because it was well beyond our skill set and our risk issue. I had been working with Christine Clancy from DPW to have a tree company come in and look at it and get a quote and make it happen. Meanwhile, over the weekend, it fell down with the snow. So
That's
that
usually what
big,
happens.
huge one.
Did it
that-
make any noise?
I didn't hear it.
I didn't have the trail cam set up, so I went out this morning to go look at
He
it.
didn't get it.
Yeah. Oh,
That
I,
went over his head.
I don't think so.
I think he picked that up.
All right.
it,
Snow muffled it.
yeah. So I went out this morning and it's down on the
It's kinda
ground.
ironic that it came down.
I have to say, I
You had
didn't,
nothing to do with that.
I didn't, no, oh
Did it
God,
go on the
no,
trail?
no. Right, yeah, so the trail's blocked, but it's,
And no one was injured, thankfully.
no, well, I didn't see any, like, feet sticking out from under it or anything, so.
That's good.
Like the Wicked Witch of the West. So we're all good there. And then the last thing, I don't think it's anywhere else on here, is the, we did get a proposal from Oxbow on the Warren Pole Botanical Inventory for $3,500 plus some expenses. So, based on our previous conversation about finding money, we think we can use this new process
Nice.
that we're aware of to make that work. And this will be the start of identifying all of the invasives on the site and starting a site plan for doing invasive management and then native plant, how we want to go forward, but at least we've got to start.
Carol,
We've
if
gotta,
that proposal from Oxbow is uniquely to Wright Reservation, I would recommend.
Warren Pole.
Oh, I thought you said Wright
This
Reservation.
is one,
We got
both.
did we get right too?
Yeah, there's
Yes.
2 of them.
Okay.
Separate
okay.
proposal for Wright Reservation. If we just, I think the money should come out of the trust fund.
Yep.
For the simple reason is we have never taken money out of it.
Right.
And I think it's important that we
Yeah.
do.
And that's really the trust purpose here.
And I asked the treasurer to verify, the process for getting approval for expenditures from that fund. He did send an email to town council. We haven't heard a thing. So I don't know if,
Town council's already voted, I'll send you, he already sent an email about 6, 7 months ago.
Or
Okay.
maybe 2 years ago.
2 years.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it was quite a, yeah.
did you already forward that to John, Dave? John Souza?
I can't
So
recall.
I suggest we just go ahead, sign the proposal, and then just,
For both, For both?
Well, for both. Well, I mean, depending on whether
But
you want to
keep them
get the
separate.
CPC
Yeah,
approved.
the funding, one would be through CPC funding and one would be through.
But
I totally agree.
But I
totally
think
agree,
at this point,
Yep.
that
Okay.
we have the
Yeah,
authorization. to
because
spend
especially if, that way Oxbow can come in here and because the sites are next to each other, they can manage the
Right.
visit, logistically.
I
for
would
them.
just inform town council, this is what we
Yep.
proceeding to do, and
Mm.
then he gives him a chance to wave his hand and say he's got a question or concern. Just keep him,
But I mean, Oxbow has to get their schedule set, and this
Right.
is the time they're doing it, so
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
we gotta
and
tell
that's
them.
why I'd like to get them locked in so that we're
Yeah.
having this happen and in fact, they have, I think, 3 visits because of seasonality.
You're right, and the report would be like, what, December?
Yeah, although I want to make sure we get into
We had to
them.
have like Chairman Conservation Commission approve, we had to have the treasurer approve.
That's for the right one.
We had
Yeah.
the right one, yeah, and we had to have the town council approve.
Right, yeah.
So that way-
That shouldn't be, yeah. So, but you're right, Peter, what we want to have is some interim reports from Oxbow, so that we're not waiting to see anything. And
Carl,
I'm sure
You
they'd
can verify that.
do that.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I was actually asking kind of the follow-on question. I know you've thought about this. I'm just curious, briefly. You outlined a multi-step process with possibly the Sudbury people offering some assistance, and that sounds fantastic. Is it a case where we just have to wait until, well, whatever, December, for the inventory before we start thinking about hiring somebody or Oxbow to do the actual invasives plan and a planting plan, so that those plans then are a year and a half away? Or is
Yeah.
there,
And
I guess you have to, right, because you got to look at
Well,
it different seasons.
That's
Is there a way
kind
to
of what I
speed
want
that
to,
up?
that's kind of what I want to talk to Laura about. That's one of the things I
Yeah.
would ask her is there a way we can do this so that we
Sure.
can, like, we know we have burning bush. Could we get going on
Get rid of
that?
it, yeah.
Like, we don't need somebody to tell us, how to do that because there's so much there.
That would make
Or
you-
something like that that's like, okay, what can we do this year? But in the meantime, let's get a real methodical approach to do this, because this is, to me, is like a 10-year process.
Right.
It's not a.
Or forever even.
Yeah.
It's
in perpetuity.
Yeah, I think, it's a curve and it starts to, 8 or 9 or 10 years, it hopefully settles down to a much smaller, hopefully,
But it'll be fun to see what grows if you got rid of those burning bushes, what native stuff is
Yep.
lurking.
Oh, yeah.
yep.
Okay.
So does that mean, should we be taking a vote on this to approve the spending of monies, funds for these Oxbow
Yeah, I think we should.
surveys? So I make a recommendation, I make a motion that we approve the spending as quoted in the proposals on both the Warren Poll inventory proposal, which would be funded through use of CPC funding, and the Right Reservation proposal, which would be funded through the Right Reservation Trust Fund.
In what amounts?
One was 3,500 plus expenses, let's say 4,500, I'd say 1,000 in expenses, something like that, so that would be
Not to
Warren Poll.
exceed.
Not to exceed 4,500.
Yeah, and let's round it up to 5,000. I don't know what the expenses,
You round it up, they'll spend it.
no, that's up to us, that's up to us, that's up to us.
That's what you would ask CPC for.
Yeah, and then,
cynical.
yeah.
Damn right.
And then I don't know what the right one was.
I think that was.
I thought he said
35.
that was more.
I can,
Give us a minute.
All right.
I need to know the amount.
Oh, sorry, yeah, here it is. Just approve it, it's just money, come on, guys. Oh, it is the same, it's 3,500 also. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right thing. This is the right reservation, 3,500.
does that include the optional tasks as well?
No, 2,600 for the optional tasks,
Okay.
which, I don't, oh, that's the invasive species, yeah. That's actually what we really want to have done. So that would be the 35 plus 26.
51.
So 51, and then expenses, let's say another 1,500, 51, 61, 6,600.
Price is going up.
Soon it's real money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be out of the right, so.
Well, it's use it or lose it, right, Dave?
Yeah, so
We don't
that's
lose it. We don't lose
6,500,
the trust
let's say
fund.
6,500 for the right
Stays there
reservation
forever.
from the trust fund.
What were the two
Say
things?
that
One
again?
was 26 and one was,
One was, so 3,500 would be be the botanical survey and the report of the botanical survey. And then the 2,600 would be a focused invasive species mapping, which would be working with us on working with us on coming up with a plan and mapping of the targeted species.
Where? Those two are right.
That's it, right.
Those two are right reservation.
Yes, all that's it, right.
So 6,100, all right.
So move.
No,
65.
65, let's go to 65.
All right,
I don't know what the expenses are gonna be, and we don't know. It says
all right. We can deal with those.
mileage and per diem and all
They can
that.
come
so-
back to
They
us.
can come back to us, that's right. So motion by Dave, 6,500 for Wright, and then we had 5,000, right, for
Five.
Warren Paul. So the motion by Dave,
Not to exceed.
with those not to exceed amounts.
second.
Second by Bill. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None unanimous. All right, good, thanks.
I think that's all I've got.
So that's all for land management. Oh, what
And-
about
and-
this library?
Again?
Okay, so I received this message from Leslie Kimball, about a week or so ago, where she's saying that they're getting ready to put up the land acknowledgement / grant signs at the properties that the commission approved. The plan is to attach the weather-proof signs to the kiosks that already exist, as we talked about when we met at Warren Poll. We do also have a wooden kiosk that can be installed at a site that needs it. The sites that were approved are Warren Poll, George B.B. Wright, Cranberry Bog, Thanksgiving Forest, Hart Pond, and Crooked Spring. We have the staff who can attach the signs to the kiosks / boards, but I don't want to do it without your go-ahead and knowing.
She
if
wants
you
to
would want
put
meet us.
additional kiosks up?
Well, it sounds like that's what they could
I don't think
do.
we want to do that.
What is this exactly?
Remember, she's got these little lending, they're gonna be stories about indigenous people in Chelmsford, and she asked if she could put them at half a dozen,
Right.
and we said yes. Now she wants to promote it.
Yeah, so she wants to put up the signs, and
I'd put the signs in the existing kiosks and find space.
I think
and
that's what it says.
That's what it
That's what
says,
she's
sites
asking.
that
I think
need
that's what
one.
it says.
I thought she said she has
She does.
additional
I
kiosks.
said we do also have a wooden kiosk, a
need
wooden
it
kiosk
installed,
that can
so
be
we don't want
installed at
that.
a site that
We
needs
don't
it.
want a new one installed.
And it was only, remember, we also said we want to review it in a year, right? That was the last vote. 'Cause we-
Okay, thanks for
We
reminding
don't
me.
want that, we may not want that stuff up there forever, that's all.
Yeah,
Does,
but I-
does
And we
anyone
are
want to?
specifying inside the kiosk.
Yes, right.
Behind the glass.
You know, glass, yeah.
Does anyone want to go out on site with her when they're actually doing it?
I'll go.
Okay,
I'm happy to.
okay.
Good.
So I'll reply to her, letting her know that she's all set to get started, and I'll CC you and saying you want to join her.
Yep, okay.
Funny story about indigenous people, just quickly.
We're
So-
being, we're on TV still.
That's all right, no, it's not. My son was working on some work, was doing some work, and had a document from another person in the company. And it was about the tax advisory service Intuit, you know, the software?
Yeah.
And the whole advertising campaign talks about Intuit. But the kid, college-educated kid, spells it Inuit,
Oh, Eskimos.
Eskimos. So they had to change the word.
no.
And all that, he didn't know the difference between Intuit and Inuit.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead, Jim, Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Dave.
We need a little levity.
We did, absolutely. It was totally appropriate.
And it was indigenous, right?
Eskimo tax service? No.
Right. So that, I think, takes us through our land management update. Anything more in the agent, department?
I'll just say I'm still trying to get an RTA out of them at 203 Boston Road. I spoke to the guy on site and asked him, to provide a description of the work that they did. He promised me he would get that to me, and he still hasn't done it,
He's
so
not gonna.
guess I just got
Is
to
he
keep.
under a cease and desist?
No, not yet.
the next step.
I'll get back to him and say,
Yeah.
the commission's getting pretty impatient, gotta get this done,
Yes, we are.
you know?
Yeah. Okay,
I think,
good, all right. We need to approve the January 10th minutes that we have in front of us. That was a late night, we went to 10:30 or
Yep.
so, but we've had this for a couple weeks to look at. Have a motion to
Just look
approve
for where your
January
name is.
10th. Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
Yeah, so.
So we just have a motion to approve January 10th minutes.
So moved.
All right, Carl on the motion, we have a
Second.
second, seconded by Mark, excellent. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, unanimous, all right, so that takes us to motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Carl on the motion to adjourn, seconded.
Second.
Seconded
You
by
don't
Dave.
second, you don't second those, right?
I don't think you actually do, yeah. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is concluded.